Hi, welcome to episode 3 of the Adventures of Foodini podcast. I thought I would chat today about toilet training. It's a big one, especially for people with non-speaking children. It's definitely something that gave me serious anxiety about because all I could think about was my kid being the only kid in school that was in a nappy, and that just freaked me out. So it was definitely a tricky thing to accomplish, especially at such a young age. Phoenix was, it was just shy of his 4th birthday that he was fully toilet trained. So he was beginning toilet training around that 18th month mark when he regressed. And from there he was just like, I'm not doing that. So that was very tricky to try and reintroduce, I suppose. We didn't manage to reintroduce it till he was 3. And we got a lot of flack for that. People going, oh, he should be out of nappies by now. You know, my kid was out of nappies by 18 months, 2 years. That's great. That's great for you. But for Phoenix, it wasn't possible. So the first thing I noticed with Phoenix is he actually was able to control his bladder fairly young. I only noticed this because when I'd go to get him in the morning, he would have a dry nappy, and within a minute of him waking up, he'd have a full nappy, and it was warm. So I was like, wow, okay, he is actually holding at night. But that was very backwards, because normally you toilet train kids during the day and then you toilet train them at night last. And so I didn't want to do it the other way around. I wanted him to kind of have the basics down pat in the daytime before I pressured him, I suppose, into losing a nappy at night. So I didn't actually act upon that until later. But we did all of the normal, or what you would call normal kind of stuff with him, with toilet training. You know, people say, I'll toilet train them in the summer because they can run around naked and see themselves pee in the backyard, for example. So we did that. We waited till summer, and he would run around in the backyard butt naked, and he would be able to see himself urinating. And that definitely helped. We could see that he was acknowledging that. He's like, oh, okay, I can, something's going on here. And so that was kind of the first stage. And then the second stage was putting him in underwear and letting him run around outside, so that when he did urinate, he would wet himself and he would feel it. And it's kind of, I guess, designed to link that feeling, or the biological feeling of needing to go to the toilet, with a sensation, so that you can be like, oh, okay, when I feel that inside my bladder, this is what happens. So from there it was like, oh, you needed to go to the toilet. So then taking them and putting them on the toilet and going, this is where we go to wee, and kind of continuing that. It's not that simple with somebody that's non-speaking. There's going to be pushback potentially where they're not going to want to do it. But for me, it's slow and steady wins the race. It's not something that needs to be perfected in 4 weeks. It's not something that is going to happen overnight. It's going to take months and months of persistence. Will everyone be able to be toilet trained? That is definitely not what I'm saying. There are people out there that are still in nappies now and they're adults, and that's okay. If that's what they need and that's the best that they can accomplish, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the individual. But if you always try, right? If there is a possibility of it being, being a possible, then you give it a go. So Phoenix was doing a lot of that, running around the backyard, weeing his undies, all that kind of stuff. We're fortunate we have a toilet close by downstairs, so that made it a bit easier for us. He worked out pretty quickly how to wee on the toilet. We always, being a boy, I feel like it doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl. You start them off by sitting down, because it's one less thing, especially for neurodivergent children. It's one less step in that. It doesn't matter what they need to do, whether they need to do a wee or a poo, they're sitting down, so perfect. They don't have to change positions. Like, I don't know, I'm a girl, so I sit, but I don't know if there'd be a time where a boy would be standing up to urinate and going, oh, actually, I need to I need to do the other thing too. And at least this way, they don't have to think about that. If it happens, it happens. They're sitting. Phoenix still sits now. He went through a phase where he would stand, and that's probably because his dad showed him how to stand. And so for a while there, he was like doing that because it was cool, it was new, it was novel. And then eventually he's just gone, that's too hard, I'll just sit. So he generally does sit no matter what he's doing. But yeah, it took a long time to actually get him to trust the toilet. So we couldn't do like porta potties or anything like that. He wasn't interested. We tried. But the biggest thing for him on the toilet, which I didn't realize until much later, was feeling unstable. So he could get up on the toilet, no worries, and sit down. And when he sit down and wee, he was all good. But to poop on the toilet, that was the challenge. That took a lot longer than teaching him how to wee on the toilet. And it ended up being because he didn't feel stable on the toilet. So Phoenix, he doesn't do it now, but for the longest time, whenever he would go to poop, he would squat on the toilet. And as far as I'm aware, it's there's a lot of Asian cultures that do that, and it's because that actually aligns the body and the system to poop like in a straight line, so it actually clears everything out. So it's actually the most natural way to go to the toilet. And so I don't know, he must just have had that instinct, and that's how he began trying to go to the toilet. And I guess you see that with a lot of kids when they're in nappies, right? They go and they'll take themselves off to a corner somewhere and squat down and start grunting, and you're like, oh, yep, okay, little Johnny's about to fill his nappy. So I guess it is just a natural instinct maybe for people in general, but he would squat on the toilet, so his feet would be on the toilet seat, and naturally, like, you have to have good balance for that, right? And he's always had good balance, but at that age, like, the idea of balancing on that with the potential to fall in the toilet, that seemed to terrify him. He just saw this toilet as like this black abyss, and if he fell in, we were going to lose him forever. So he absolutely refused. Like, he would go into meltdown mode if we tried to suggest that he poop on the toilet. And I knew that he knew he needed to go, because those days when he was in undies and running around, if he needed to poop, he'd go and grab a nappy and bring it to me. And I'm like, you need to go. So that actually helped us, because we were able to see that as a sign, like, oh, you need to go to the toilet to poop, let's go. But as I say, he refused, flat out refused. It wasn't until I got one of those toilet seat, toilet training things. I mean, here they're like yellow, blue, and red. And if you know, you know. But they've got like the steps, and then it's got this thing that goes over the toilet seat, and it's got rails on the side so that kids can hold on. And as soon as I bought one of those, he was fine. He started pooping on the toilet. We tried lots of things like videos. People say, oh, there's songs, videos, and stuff like that. That helps. It does sometimes. There was one in particular that he really liked. And he continued to watch it even after he was toilet trained. So he really, really liked that. It was like a musical song type thing of going to the bathroom. But the thing that I really want to, I guess, educate people on regarding toilet training is the process of it all, because it's not so simple and straightforward as it sounds. Like, we take it for granted that we just automatically go to the toilet, but when you really break down the steps of going to the toilet, there are a lot of steps. So you got to get yourself to the toilet, you got to pull down your pants, you got to pull down your undies, you got to sit on the toilet, you've got to do your business, you've got to wipe, then you've got to flush, and then you've got to pull your undies back up, pull your pants back up, wash your hands, get the soap, turn the tap on, wash your hands, turn the tap off, go and dry your hands. So there's so many steps, like, what's that, like 20? And that is something that neurodivergent people, especially kids at a young age, have trouble with. So many steps. And if it's something that's just one step, it's so quick and easy. But trying to memorize that many steps in a row is just like, it seems impossible. And that's why the process of toilet training is so long, because we had to, even though Phoenix got to that stage where it's like, oh yeah, I can go and pee on the toilet, but he didn't have all those extra steps in there. He was just going to the toilet and weeing, but then we were flushing, we were wiping, we were encouraging the hand washing and all that kind of stuff. We were there to remind him. So we had to start doing things like, it took us months to teach him just to pull his pants down and then pull his pants back up. So we taught him in order of, the process of things. So for at least a couple of weeks to a month, we were teaching him how to pull his pants and his undies down, and that was it. That's all we taught him. And then it was sitting on the toilet. But we would build on it, if that makes sense. So it'd be pull your pants down and your undies down. And then the next one would be pull your pants down, pull your undies down, sit on the toilet. And then the next one would be pull your pants down, pull your undies down, sit on the toilet, do your business, if that makes sense. So it would just progressively get like a longer list of things to do. But it flowed. And so by the end, he could do all of the things that he needed to do in the order he needed to do them. But you can't just teach it all in one go. It's too overwhelming. You'll receive pushback from the child. They will regress. They'll just shut down. They'll be like, I'm not doing that. That's too much. And I can understand that too, because the more I've learned about it over the years, and then being diagnosed myself, I look at those things and I go, yeah, that makes sense. It's just, I don't want to do that either. Like, that's just too much in one go. And it just makes sense, the overwhelm with it. And so that is probably my biggest piece of advice with toilet training. You need to break it down into more manageable stages and make sure that you stay focused on that stage, or one stage at a time, for a prolonged period of time. Don't just do one stage for a couple of days and then move to the next. That's too quick. I feel like the sweet spot was anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks per stage. It sounds like a long time, I know it does, but that's what I mean. It took us a year to toilet train Phoenix, and that is why. It's not a lot of kids, especially neurotypical children, they learn it really quick, but they're different, they're wired differently, they learn differently. So it's like, I have a lot of siblings. I've seen the way different kids have been toilet trained. There was one sibling that refused it. I'm convinced he is on the spectrum. And then the next child learned it really quick, and that actually pushed the older sibling to toilet train because it was a competition all of a sudden. So it's amazing what that can do too. But every kid's different, so that's not going to work for some kids either. And that's the thing, is like, you can try all the sticker charts in the world, you can bribe with all of the treats in the world, but I found personally with Phoenix, it didn't work. It just didn't work. So and sticker charts and things like that have never ever worked for Phoenix at all. And I'm a big believer too that you don't use food as a reward, because it can kind of create confusion around food. Like, food, you need food to survive, right? So to be using it as a tool to get something, it just, I don't know, it feels, not manipulative is not the word, but it's just, I just feel like that's kind of off limits. But that's a personal opinion. So we've never done that kind of stuff with him when it comes to it's different if it's like, eat your dinner and then you can have this, but I'm talking like, if you with the toilet training, if you go and sit on the toilet, you can have a chocolate. It's also something that when you're doing things like that, you need to work out long term, can you sustain that? Because a lot of kids on the spectrum, and Phoenix is one of them, once you do something once, the expectation will always be there, because you won't be able to explain to them why it was happening before and why now it's not. So That is definitely something that I will get into in a separate episode, but it is important that anything that you are doing, especially when you're training, like with toileting and things like that, that you make sure that expectations are sustainable and for both parties, not just the individual you're toilet training. But yeah, so that is how we toilet trained Phoenix. It was not, magic. It took a long time. It wasn't quick. And so once he was toilet trained during the day, that is when we moved on to the overnight stuff. We didn't do it straight away. We let him really settle into the routine of using the toilet during the day because we felt like he still needed that safety net, I suppose, of the nappy at night, just in case. And we kind of did the same thing with bottles, like he was bottle fed. I expressed milk for 10 months, blah, blah, blah. There was formula involved. But with the bottle feeding, the last one you normally take away is the nighttime one. So same kind of concept, really. But once we felt he was more comfortable with the daytime toileting, that's when we started to trial taking away the nappy at night. And yeah, he was pretty much a natural when it came to the nighttime toilet training. So I don't really have much advice for that because, yeah, I noticed he was able to control his bladder and hold overnight before I noticed anything else. I don't know if that's normal. Normal with air quotations, because what is normal? But that was his normal. So I don't know, I'm kind of thankful for that. It was less complicated in that regard. But yeah, I've known people that their kids were still wetting the bed for years after they'd been toilet trained during the day. But I guess the good thing about that is if you can get the daytime toileting sorted, the nighttime toileting isn't as much of a priority, because at least they're still not having to wear nappies out and about, wearing nappies at school, that kind of stuff. But all I can say in regards to toilet training, if they're still wetting the bed and things like that by a certain age, definitely talk to a doctor about that, because there are certain conditions that can cause that, where like deep sleeping, your body not producing certain things to alert you that you need to go to the toilet in the middle of the night so you don't wake up, things like that. So yeah, if you struggle, if you do okay with the daytime toilet training but then you struggle with the nighttime and it continues for a time, it's best to chat to a doctor about that, just in case. They can do some checks and things like that to work out if it's a medical thing or not. But yeah, that's NDIS and stuff like that. They do cover things like nappies when for older children. So there is that if you are unsuccessful with toilet training. But yeah, as I say, don't assume that they can't. Give it a go, and don't give up like straight away. It is a very long process. It's not something that is going to happen overnight. It could take a year. It did for us. So yeah, perseverance is very important. I know how frustrating it is. You don't want to be cleaning up messes all the time, but you got to think about the long game when it comes to this kind of stuff, because if it means that there's no nappies and stuff involved, then everybody wins, really. but yeah, as I say, not everyone can be toilet trained, but I definitely recommend at least trying and giving it a go, and sticking with it for a prolonged period of time to ensure that you've given it the best chance you possibly can. But yeah, that is pretty much the extent of my advice when it comes to toilet training. If you've got any questions, you can pop them in the comments. If you have any other topics that you can think of that you would like me to cover, I will do my best. Pop those in the comments. And yeah, so that's pretty much a wrap for this episode. So until next time, be kind to yourself.